Ah, more creatures of the night. Now it is time that you learn what it is to be a true dark and brooding beast of the evening. I don't know what you're talking about, old man. I am the darkest of them all. I am also called the Night by the people I protect. That is why I am called the Dark Knight.
You are both pathetic and misguided. All know that I am the one who has the true power of the Force.
Neither of you know how dark the dark is. I look into the dark, but all I see it was more dark. And despite it all, and becomes the dark center of my attention for the world. And even then, there is still dark inside of the dark master of the
tribe of indigenous men, women, and children, and I killed my own wife with SAD.
That's pretty dark, bro. You should go home and think this one over. My friend, you are in need of a true reality check. Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display, where finally we are having a long-awaited review on NECA's iteration of perhaps one of the most iconic movie monsters of all time, being Bela Lugosi's Count Dracula from the Dracula movie. Now this, of course, is the very first iteration of Dracula on film that was not illegally solicited, and honestly this figure is absolutely magnificent. So before we get into him, let's have a look at the box. So as NECA always does with the Universal Monsters line, they always go out of their way to make an absolutely beautiful box. So over here, of course, we have the classic Dracula film poster, and we have this big old Bela Lugosi face at the top, big old Dracula in the center, and then no lady on the bottom of the poster this time. Interesting. Off to this side, we have Bela Lugosi once again, this time with his beautiful, illuminating, hypnotizing eyes, which unfortunately is not a feature of this figure. I think that would have been really nice. Kind of false advertising, but big whoop. On this side, you have him once again with his alternate portrait, looking a little bit more serious. Maybe the sunlight's about to pierce through his window blinds, and he's getting prepared to run and dash. On the back, you have even more shots of the figure. I really like how this time it's not segregated into cells. It's kind of a nice mosaic, almost a theatrical poster of the different possibilities that you can have for this Dracula figure, looking really spooky and very enigmatic, as is this character. Off to the top, we have Dracula's name once again. Then on to the bottom, we have the artist who made this figure possible, along with, who the hell is that? Oh, I thought that was Rey Skywalker from a distance. So you have, Lugosi getting his own logo. That's pretty kick-ass. Then off to the side, you have our usual
Green Arrow.
And the greatest logo of all time,
Sword Onions!
Now, Dracula is an interesting movie for me because I actually don't love that movie a whole lot, but I can say that Dracula, as portrayed by Bela Lugosi, is one of the greatest cinema performances I've ever seen when you consider the little screen time that he had and the impact that he made after his death. Really fascinating stuff. And personally, I'm of course more of a Count Orlok guy, as you know, but regardless, this is such a magnificent figure. Now, before we go ahead and study this figure, I will actually mention that this cape arrived in the box in a little bag, so this was actually totally separate from the plastic bubble, which I really liked. But when you first receive the figure, this is what you're getting. You have his default open hands. Let's turn that one a little bit. Then you get the boots down there, and just the whole thing looks absolutely excellent, just out of the box. As for this initial profile that we have an exact dead-on likeness for Bela Lugosi. Of course, when it comes to NECA and human faces, they're having a very good formula. I don't know how they do it. I don't think it's photoreal, but whatever they're doing, it looks absolutely beautiful. Fantastic across the board with all their Universal Monsters figures. You have his trademark widow's peak at the top, along with a very beautiful hairline panning back to a very flat hairdo going on, I guess you could call it. You have his two ears peeking out. This is actually the most human-looking figure of all the Universal Monster figures we've gotten thus far. As for this head sculpt, you have his beautiful blue eyes, and then you also have this very cheeky-looking smile going on, like he knows who he is. Just this cockiness that comes through this head sculpt is absolutely exuding. Going down to the torso, you have his little amulet with a little red scarf necklace thing at the top, so that's very beautifully executed. Then you also have his suit and vest looking very good. Again, NECA knows how to get their sheens on there. You got the texturing, you got the buttons. Whenever it comes to clothing, they know exactly what they're doing. You even have this little handkerchief kind of shuffled off to the side, looking very nice. It is also worth mentioning there is a black and white version of this figure, which I think might have been an exclusive to some online shop. I'm not too sure. But regardless, this is still a very good interpretation of this character. On the back, not a whole lot to look at. You got the two buttons towards the hips area, I guess. And then down along the arms, more continuation of that suit with the white cuffs. And then also on this hand, at least, you have a little ring looking very nice, good silver application with a little bit of red going around. Onto the waist, you have that classic NECA diaper system going on. Of course, that's meant to hide all their articulation. That's never bothered me, but I'm sure one day they might come up with an alternate option when it comes to hiding those joints. Down to the legs, you just have the pants draping down, kind of like a dress pants kind of deal. And then you have some really nice polished shoes. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's really just a guy in the suit, and that guy is also Bela Lugosi. So that's pretty much it here. Moving on to accessories, you already kind of had a look at the cape, but basically it has a very nice fabric material that drapes very beautifully, not too stiff, not too soft or billowy. It's just where it needs to be, I think. And then at the top, you can see it is secured by a plastic, I forget what the term is, some sort of extended collar. I think there's something more specific than that. As you can see, there's no real peg or anything. When it comes to applying it to the figure, you see there's no hole or slot or anything of that nature. So all you do is just take the collar, pop it right onto the back of his neck, and then flare out the cape as you like, or you can keep it tapered back. But once you get the collar on there, pretty much the possibilities are just about endless. You can have him doing absolutely whatever you want. I guess one thing this does not have is wires, but I mean, in the movie, it wasn't like flared out or anything crazy like that, so that's no skin off my nose whatsoever. I think next let's hop over to one of his craziest accessories, which is his bat, or perhaps it is him himself. It could really go either way, but I really love the way that this is done. It looks very hokey to an extent. It looks like a prop, as it did in the movie. Of course, it was just kind of two strings, bobbing them up and down. When you get really close to the face, if we can get this thing to focus, you can see they did a very good job using those paint apps to make out the face. He's got a little bit of blood on the teeth, and then some red eyes. They got the fur tapering all the way back. You have an extended wing pattern with a good gray wash to make him look more mammalian, which is very nice. On the bottom, you have his two cute little feet, and then resonance of a tail, I suppose. And of course, you can't unnotice this big old porthole down here. That was actually one of my biggest concerns with this figure. I think in the product shots, we saw the bat, but we didn't see any definitive stand, but fortunately enough, they did not let us down. The next thing we have here is this long acrylic rod with this ball at the end, and then it kind of just continues on to this flat end on the other side. I haven't done this yet, but it looks like you just port that right in. Yeah, be careful not to snap anything, but yeah, you heard that really nice, distinct click. And of course, that's not quite enough. If we pull back a little bit, you see at the very bottom, we have this nice solid black base, and naturally you pour in the flat side of that rod, and then there we go. We have the bat standing up. We'll bring an old Drac boy over again. You can see that he scales very nicely. I mean, it was a very oversized bat in the original Todd Browning flick, so it makes sense that he is this wide, and I like how he's above Dracula himself. It's a nice contrast. The arrangement of hands he has are a little bit odd, as good as they are, and I always say that because 4 of them are more open, and then you get 1 gripping, so I feel like they gave us more hands than they really needed to, but I guess he does have very particular gestures, whether he's either just having his hands to his side, or bringing the cape around his face, or trying to hypnotize a victim. But yeah, here are the alternate 3 hands that he comes with. So you have this hand, which you can tell is a left hand, thanks to the ring. That's more his extending, hypnotizing hand over there. Then we have another right hand over here. It's kind of more gripping, I suppose. And then this one here is also a right hand, and this is more for the various accessories that he comes with. I'm not totally sure how this is going to work, but I'm going to be using his default open hand that he came with in the packaging to try and show off the tray that he comes with when he is serving drinks, maybe with IG-11, right? That would work pretty good. They both have their bartending accessories coming with them. Might help to bend that wrist up a little bit, and there we go, he is holding it. Now the question is, can we balance the other accessories on there? Let's find out. Next up, we have this little bottle of an unbranded wine, I suppose. So let's see if we can get that on the tray. I am very worried about this. It might help to have some tack, but yeah, there you go, with our little balancing act over there. And we have two identical cups over here filled with hopefully wine and nothing else, perhaps A or B type, something other liquid. And then let's try and get these on the... No! Yeah, alright, that's all right. The tension is making me want to scream, so I'm not going to show you this for too long, but it can be done. Just takes a lot of work. Might need some tack. I went ahead and swapped out his right hand for the more gripping alternative, so we can look at this next really beautiful accessory, being his candle. Doesn't quite qualify as a candelabra, it's just a single candle, but that's okay. But the detail here is very realistic and convincing, like even especially on the paint, on the flame, it looks like it's glowing a little bit. I don't know what it is they did, but I guess they just used very bright colors to sort of simulate that glowing feel, which I like a lot. Then you also have the wax from the candle melting down. It just feels very real, this entire thing. And then, of course, you have this very ornate, almost dragon-looking design for the grip. And as for getting this into his hand, thankfully the box is really nice with giving you the different shots, so you have an idea of how to do everything. But it looks like you see there's kind of this slot right here, so you basically kind of just slide that in his fingers, and yeah, okay, that looks really good. Nice. I like that a lot. Good, nice. I created a new word for you yet again. I gotta upload like a dictionary of all the many words I've created on this channel. So we already had a good look at this first portrait that he comes with, that big old shit-eating grin, and then the next one that we have is when we first meet him, and he has that very creepy looking stare going on. It doesn't have those lights going on around it like it did on the box, but I'm sure if you use some LEDs and had a good camera, then you could probably pull that off. But yeah, exact same face, just different expression. They look not too distinct from each other, which I really like. They're very consistent. And then we have this next one, more angry. He just had a look at the sun, where he's getting up on a Monday morning. Now, all these heads have the exact same neck kind of coming under them. They each come with their own neck, pretty much. So it might be easier to remove the cape first, just so that's out of the way. You don't want to warp or tear anything on that. So removing the head. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it kind of jumps on you. It's kind of like what they did with the Invisible Man. The ball joint is buried very deep within the torso. And then what you do is you take that neck and then you port it in. It's a little tight around the vest, but once you get it past, yeah, there you go. Then you hear that good click, but then it looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, it looks like he came with this head sculpt already on, looking absolutely fantastic. I love that snarl. It's staying that way for the rest of the review. I think we can brush through articulation rather quickly, so you have that much down in the head and that much up. I mean, you have a dumbbell joint here and then a single ball down inside the chest, so it gives him a pretty good amount of range, has a very good amount of tilt, and then you can also swivel any which way that you prefer. As for the arms, he does a 360 swivel, single joint at the elbow that comes to just at about past 90. Also has a swivel, I always forget to mention that. As for the wrists, they swivel, and I think all of them go out and back in. Very good. On the torso, I think, again, it's hard to tell because everything's hidden by the clothing, but he can swivel just fine. He has not much crunch forward, but he does crunch back, not as great, I suppose. So I think there is a ball joint in there. As for the legs, they kick that much forward. They don't go back a whole ton because of the way that the garments kind of drape over the back there. And I imagine even without that, it wouldn't be able to go much further. It's a little bit tight. He can kick out a pretty fair amount right there. Not quite 90, but that's fine. As for the knees, they are also single jointed. Comes right down to not quite 90 as well. And on the ankles, you get Not a ton back, not a ton forward, and not a lot of rocker either, so it's okay. The articulation's not nuts, but you know Dracula. He kind of just stands there, looks imposing, kind of is a jerk. Throughout this review, he has been quite the bother to stand up, like, even if I get everything as straight out as we can. Okay. But really the weight issue comes from the cape when you have it on. Like, you see I haven't articulated the legs anymore. Put on the cape, then put him down, then he has a tendency to rock back, and then you kind of need to balance out the ankle and knee joints. It doesn't give you a lot of clearance. I mean, I guess eventually you can get it, but even then it's a little bit finicky. I feel like things are a little bit tight down there. So throughout this review, I was actually using an official licensed NECA stand. Port that on to either of the feet, and then, yeah, then he's just fine. So that's just something to let you know about. Now, of course, when it comes to size comparisons, we have to have him join our Universal Monsters gang. So all these are, of course, from the Universal Monsters line from NECA. Over here we have Wolfman, then we have Drac once again, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and then we have the Invisible Man with custom soft goods and hat. And then I also included the Bat here, and one thing I forgot to mention is that the ball joint allows him to articulate pretty much any which way you want. So when he's just sitting there, he doesn't just look like a straight line. You can tilt him forward a little bit, and you get a little bit more of that bat silhouette going on. So he has a lot of nice options, and he scales with the rest of them just fine. Honestly, not a single dull moment in this collection that we have so far. Really looking forward to Bride of Frankenstein and the Phantom of the Opera. Can't wait. To have a look at a totally different line with also some very good offerings in the horror realm. We have the Red Death version of the Phantom of the Opera, and we also have my personal favorite version of Dracula being Count Orlok from Nosferatu.
What exactly are you supposed to be? Might I inquire as to why your head is so gargantuan? What a strange and laughable affliction!
I don't see any reason why you'd want to put him next to Marvel Legends or anything like that, but here he is with Muck Muck just for the hell of it.
Now what exactly is this thing supposed to be? We did enough skits today, I'm going home!
Now, while he isn't my favorite movie vampire of all time, and I wouldn't even say he comes from my favorite vampire movie of all time, this is still an absolutely excellent figure, and it actually makes me like Bela Lugosi's portrayal a little bit more. If you're starting a horror collection, I mean, you gotta have Bela Lugosi's Dracula. I mean, he started it all when you really think about it. I think this very year, we're getting more Dracula stuff coming out, and even Nosferatu stuff. So, of all the Universal monsters, he might be the most prolific and legendary of them all. And this figure is a perfect testament to that. Really love every aspect about this figure. Even though the articulation can get a little hokey, especially around the legs, he's not supposed to move that much. He kind of just stands there and does his Romanian shtick with that accent. And you know what? I love this figure a lot. Again, not a dull moment in the Universal Monsters line from NECA. Love it, love it. Very cool. So if you enjoyed this review, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like,
comment,
and subscribe.
or like a whole bunch of monsters are gonna invade your home, Scoop! Zoinks! Blah!
and I will see you all later. With all the accessories that you have, you really do appreciate those little subtle moments that you get in that film, which is otherwise, in my opinion, a little bit scattered and a little bit dry at spots where I feel like it could be a little bit better. But then again, it's one of the original first horror movies we've ever gotten, so really this is a case of you gotta respect your elders, and Bela Lugosi, definitely one of them. I mean, without him, there's so many characters that we love and adore now who would probably never see the light of day. I mean, yeah, no pun intended, being that he's a vampire and all. That's pretty much it for Articulation, but one thing I do want to mention is that he has been an absolute bother. Oop, I knocked over Muck Muck.